Hello everyone, I'm the Canadian Gaming Penguin.
Oh boy, did we have a lot of exciting news on Friday during the announcement showcase, and then a few hours later during the Letter from the Producer Live Part 62. I will be talking about the announcement showcase in this video. The first portion will be spoiler-free or as spoiler-free as I can be, and it will only give the basic details of what we learned, after which I will be going into more details about the things that we learned during the announcement showcase. Alrighty, so as spoiler-free as possible, it comes to no surprise to me, or I expect many of you, that we learned of the next expansion to Final Fantasy XIV, which is titled Endwalker, and I'm sure you've probably seen a number of things related to this already. The announcement showcase started off with the very first teaser trailer of the Endwalker expansion. The Endwalker expansion is going to be released sometime in fall of this year, that is 2021. The Digital Fan Festival is going to be taking place on Friday, May 14th and Saturday, May 15th, and we'll be going into more details about the expansion. The Digital Fan Festival being officially titled as Final Fantasy XIV Digital Fan Festival 2021 around the world. That is a mouthful. And by the way, the Final Fantasy XIV Digital Fan Festival 2021 around the world will be free. Not only will it be free, but it will be streaming everything for free. Super excited! Or as Frankie likes to say, super! Yes, I like One Piece. Moving on. And yes, this does include the live concert. They did, however, note that they may not be able to archive all of what is streamed, so make sure to check out the stream if and when you can. The portions of the stream that they likely will not be able to archive are third-party guests or events, and that is with those that are not directly associated with Square Enix themselves. I'm sure as we get closer to May, Square Enix will be able to tell us what they will not be able to archive. During the announcement showcase, we also got our first look at some of the commemorative items that will be available for purchase during the Digital Fan Festival, including the very first 8-seater, that is a full party, that is 8 players, mount, Lunar Whale. Woo! And now, as excited as I am about that, I expect that it's going to have a pretty price tag to it, which likely means I won't be able to get it, but oh well. Anyways, we saw a video of it, and this video is also available to be viewed at a number of different locations, including the Final Fantasy XIV YouTube channel. I will have a link to the video in the description below. Mentioning links in the description below, I will also have the link to the teaser trailer for the Endwalker expansion, along with this special website and the Digital Fan Festival website, etc. There'll be a few links down there. There were other commemorative items that we learned of at this time, which were 3 minions of Final Fantasy IV, characters Edge, Rosa, and Rydia, and I may have pronounced that incorrectly. These will also be available for purchase during the Digital Fan Festival, so they are not available for purchase right now. So they're giving us well in advance notice, basically, of save your money so that you can get these things, basically. One final thing of note that does not include spoilery details is that the Square Enix CEO made an appearance towards the end of the announcement showcase and made an announcement about the PlayStation 5 version of the game. This announcement also came along with a video, which the link to will be in the description below. In this video, we learned that on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, an open beta of the Final Fantasy XIV game will be available to the PlayStation 5. And this coincides with the launch of the first part of patch 5.5, which is going to be broken up into 2 parts, but more on that in the Letter from the Producer Live video. Anyways, with the open beta, you can expect a 4K resolution support, faster loading times, significant improved frame rate, or if you're not able to have a 4K resolution, there is a full HD 2K mode that can be used as well. And as for the price of the Final Fantasy XIV Online game for PS5, if you have a registered license for the PS4 version of the game, you will be able to upgrade to the PS5 version at no extra cost. You will, however, still need to maintain a monthly subscription. One thing that was noted was that if you can actually find a PS5 to play on, of course there's still the shortage, if you will, of the game console itself. In the letter of the producer live, they went into a little more details about the PS5. So, for example, those who use a disc for the game, a PS4 version, I will have more details about this in the letter of the live letter part 62 video that I will have hopefully the next day from whenever this video is released. Anyways, that is basically all the non-spoilery information that was given during the announcement showcase. The rest of the video will be going into more details about what is to come with the Endwalker expansion and of the things that we learned about the Endwalker expansion. If you're not wanting to know more details, thank you for watching. I plan to have a video of my summary of the letter from the producer live, as I mentioned just a moment ago, out the next day from whenever this video is out. And you'll see my comment below why it was delayed a few days. Once again, thank you for watching. Now, this is the spoilery bit, so if you don't want to get spoiled, this is the time for you to close the video. Now, time to talk about the Endwalker expansion. The very first thing we saw in the announcement showcase was the first teaser trailer for the expansion, the link to which will be in the description below, as I mentioned earlier. I love the look of the paladin gear that the Warrior of Light is wearing during this trailer, and I want it now. And that's basically all I have for comments about the trailer itself, because I don't want to give any spoilers more than necessary or my thoughts on that directly. And the only other thing I will say is that I'm really, really, really excited for the expansion now, especially with more of the stuff that we learned of, which I will get to in just a second. So, as I mentioned earlier in the video, the Endwalker expansion is expected to be released sometime in the fall of this year. That is 2021. Now, let's get into the details. There are 2 new jobs with this expansion, a healer and a melee DPS. We learned of the healer role as it is also teased in the trailer. We were told that we will learn more about the melee DPS at a future date, such as during the Digital Fan Festival in May. After which we saw a showcase video of this new healing job, Sage. The link in the video will be in the description below. The Sage uses Aether-imbued weapons, aka Newliths, which are a Final Fantasy original concept. Alphino is seen as this role in the teaser trailer. As to how and why he assumes this role as a Sage, we will need to play the main scenario quest to find out. Or at least that's what we were told. Sages control the Newliths via the use of Aether and are used for combat. The Sage job will have a starting level of 70 with only 2 requirements to unlock the job. The first of which is to have at least 1 job at level 70, as per usual with most jobs that have been released afterwards, and the second requirement is to have purchased the Endwalker expansion. Again, also per usual. With the announcement of this new healer, we also learned that there will be changes to the way the healer classes are classified. They are going to have 2 healers that are barrier healers and 2 healers that are pure healing, so to speak. The Sage and the Scholar will be the barrier healers, while the White Mage and the Astrologian will be the pure healing healers. Apparently that's a tongue twister. Thus, starting in 6.0, Astrologian will be changed to be more of a pure healing healer. So this will also carry through into the matching in the Raid Finder to make the distinction between the barrier healers and the pure healers, whatever that means. Anyway, I expected that this will mean that the Nocturnal Sect with Astrologian will, well, change. That said, that is merely my speculation, but as it is currently a shield/type barrier, it would make sense for that to change, even though the white mage also has kind of a shield thing as well, which might also change. But anyways, I personally really like how Astrologian uses barriers, so I'm a little wary of this change. But at the same time, I'm curious as to why it might be necessary to make the distinction between the two types of healers, assuming there is a reason beyond just playstyle of players. At any rate, I'm personally looking forward to the Sage job. The Sage job will also be able to temporarily augment their own magic abilities, which, as explained to us, would temporarily make them more powerful. The job quest will be accessible in Limsa Lominsa right after the expansion releases. So, if you want to start playing as a Sage right away once patch 6.0 is available, then make sure to log out in Limsa Lominsa, along with everybody else. The Endwalker expansion will conclude the story of Hydaelyn and Zodiark. I emphasize this concludes this storyline, but does not conclude the story of Final Fantasy XIV. Square Enix wanted to make it very clear that this is the end for this storyline, but not the end of Final Fantasy XIV. They are committed to have this game running for many, many years to come, as they stated, and I'll dive into this topic a bit more later on in this video. As for the story in Endwalker, the questions raised and unanswered throughout A Realm Reborn through Shadowbringers will be answered in Endwalker. We will learn what brought about the final days, what became of Hydaelyn and Zodiark, what the Garlean Empire's fate is, what Xenos and Fandanel's aims are, and what must be found on the moon. If you're wondering, by the way, we were told that Fandanel, who is using the body of Asahai, is not the final boss. Haha. That makes me happy. I do not like Asahai. Which is why they picked a very good character to use as a hosted body, if you will. But that's beside the point. And sorry, that was a bit of a spoiler if you haven't finished part of the story. I won't say what, because yeah. Anyway. Oh, and Alisaie, she's still a red mage. Woe to her. But she does get a new outfit, which probably makes her happy. Apparently. And supposedly we will be surprised about who gives it to her. We were also told that the storyline in Endwalker was going to be complex, similar to how it is in Shadowbringers, and considering how complex and how much depth there is in the Shadowbringers story, I'm really looking forward to the story now. Next, we move on to the features that will be available with version 6.0. The level cap will increase from level 80 to level 90, which doesn't surprise me. What would have surprised me is if it was more or less than 10 levels. Next, we have massive new areas to explore, and we were able to see some screenshots and or concept art of some of these areas. One of these new areas is named Rad's at Han, which will be a smaller town like Ulmor, and will be found in the Thavnar region. Those names may sound familiar to you, and they should. We are told that the area around this island, Radzat Han, will have a subtropical feel to it. Next, we have the Garlean Empire capital Garlemald. The concept art that we were shown shows us that it is completely devastated. We are told that this will have a deep and intricate story related to how this came about. Much like A Realm Reborn, in each of the expansions, the Warrior of Light meets new tribes. Thus, we will in fact have new tribes. The first of whom is the Arkasodra tribe, if I said that right, of the race Matanga, which you may have seen before in the Azim Steep. Except that the Arkasodra tribe is way more friendly. Next, we were shown that we will have to face off against new threats such as Anima. I'm sure there's a reference to that or something. I think it's from a previous Final Fantasy game. I don't know. And we were also shown some concept art to a few new different dungeons. And as per usual with each expansion, there will be a new Alliance raid. This time the Alliance raid series is called Pandemonium, which will be an original story to Final Fantasy XIV. PvP fans may be happy about this next bit. There will be a new small-scale PvP mode, which Square Enix aims to make it more casual and more immersive, and also remove the role restrictions. I've never really done PvP, so I don't know what role restrictions there are. Anyways, they plan to make I guess you have to be a level 30 and the job of that, if that's what they mean. Or if they mean you don't need to be a tank, or you don't need to be a healer, or you don't need to be a DPS sort of thing. In which case, that makes me interested in what kind of PvP it is. Anyways, moving on. They plan to make the matching easier. Additionally, they plan on adding a new category of rewards in addition to the ones that currently exist. One of those being gear. That already exists, that is. As per usual, there will be new side quests, which includes role quests, crafting, and gathering quests. With the role quests, they're going to be making changes to how it was in Shadowbringers. Instead of the 4 categories of tank, healer, melee/ranged DPS, and magical ranged DPS, they will be splitting the melee and the ranged DPS categories so that there will be 5 different categories in total. This way, they will be able to apply the story more directly to that role type. And as for the crafting and gathering gathering quests, they said they couldn't go into details about this as they could not talk about the new large-scale city, as the city is super spoilery. Their words. What they did say is that there would be new gear and recipes, which is no surprise. Next up is the trust system. The trust system is going to have a new friend added to it to use with it. If you don't want to find out, skip about 10-15 seconds ahead starting now. Estadian! Woohoo! Estadian will be playing as a Dragoon, which makes up for the lack of melee DPS currently with the Scions, and as to why he joins the Scions, well, we're told we'll just have to play the main scenario quest to find out. Interestingly, we'll find out fairly soon, relatively speaking, from what we're told anyways. We were also told that there would be more features included in the trust system, and more activities/duties for us to do. But they would get into more details in the future, as it was too early to talk about just yet. Next, the Gold Saucer. All they told us is that there is going to be a big thing added, similar to the Scale of Mahjong. Of course, they paused to ask the chats what they thought, and basically everyone was saying Blitzball. I guess we'll find out if it's that, and I'd be lying if I didn't say, or I'd be lying if I said I didn't want Blitzball myself. Since they added Mahjong though, and since I'm become a fan of Hikaru no Go, the anime, I would be pretty happy if the game was Go. I'm not educated enough to explain exactly what Go is, so you'll have to look it up. Or look up the anime. What I can say is that it's a board game. Whatever it is that is added to the Gold Saucer, we were told that it would be available for multiplayers at the very least. And now that I'm on this train of thought, it would actually be pretty cool if it was shogi as well. I may have distracted myself for a few minutes trying to think of what they might add, and as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of part of the letter from the producer live that the project manager Shoichi Matsuzawa presented along with the director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV, Naoki Yoshida. They demonstrated in slide form what this schedule would look like when Yoshida-san went to Matsuzawa-san, and that he wanted Mahjong added to the game. If you watched any part of the letter of the live, if you watched that part, or any of that part of the letter from the producer live part 62, you may know what I mean. And if not, I'll briefly be going over that in my video of the live letter, and it was really amusing. But anyway, and informative for that matter. But anyways, back to the announcement showcase stuff. Now, this next bit I'm very excited about. Island Sanctuary. From the name, it's clear that it's about an island of some sort, and that it's a sanctuary. But for what, and for whom? Well, I just have to show the artwork that we were shown. It is very colorful, and the first thing I noticed was, well, the field of crops, and then the next thing I noticed was the minions. Especially this one. No idea why I'd noticed that one first, right? Of course, there were many others like myself that also immediately thought of Stardew Valley, so with the colors and the farming, and other people were saying Animal Crossing, and other people were saying Harvest Moon, etc. The Island Sanctuary will allow Final Fantasy XIV players to enjoy a bit of slow living, as was described to us. Basically, we'll be able to reclaim an island and restore it, which makes me think of Stardew Valley even more. Except it's not on an island, it's just reclaiming a farm and kind of restoring it to its former glory, if you will. Anyway, this will be available to all players, be they crafter, a gatherer, or neither of the two, or even both of the two. And being a crafter or gatherer will allow players to do some things that others will not be able to do. Other things will be available to everyone, such as raising animals. And yes, you heard that right, raising animals. Cultivating the land and selling the crops, allowing minions to roam around. Amusingly, I had just said something about minions in the chat, and about 20 seconds later, Yoshida-san mentioned the bit about minions. Of course, it was in Japanese and then translated, but anyways, of course, the reason why I made my comment was because of the minions in the artwork that we were shown in the first place. So, anyways, the Island Sanctuary will be available throughout all of 6.0. Next up, something many players have been waiting for. Ishgard housing! Woohoo! Now I need to decide if I leave Shugane, which I only acquired a house in just a few months ago, or wait for Ishgard or not. Haha. One important thing to note is that the Ishgardian housing will not be available for purchase immediately at 6.0. But the housing area will be available to see at the launch of 6.0. The purchase of a housing plot will not be available until patch 6.1. In the meantime, looking around in the firmament will give players a fairly good idea of how the Ishgardian housing will be like. And they are continuing to try to improve the situation of the housing, and they kind of elaborated a bit more with that, and if anyone who's experienced trying to purchase housing, you will know that it does need some work with that regard. And I expect part of the reason why, apart from the fact that 6.0 does have a ton of stuff obviously going to be added, but obviously the main story itself, but with 6.1 that gives the opportunity, not only because it's going to be quite a ways in the future, that gives them the time to physically add the servers that are going to be required for the housing itself in the first place, which is obviously why one of the issues with the housing market itself right now, because they can't physically access these areas because of, obvious reasons right now. It couldn't be because there's a pandemic right now or anything like that. No, it's certainly not affecting travel or anything like that. Moving on. Anyways, so that is basically it for the Ishgardian housing right now. I think they said that they would be going into more details about it in the Digital Fan Festival as well. Battle changes that are coming, or battle system changes that are coming in patch 6.0 we'll be starting with the first that the values are going to be downscaled. So what does that mean exactly? This means that effectively, if we looked at the values right now, so a 10 is valued at 10. With the downscale, the 10 will now be valued at 5. So we'd see a 10 hit become a 5 hit, if that makes sense. If not, well, just imagine that while your numbers may be reduced, it does not mean that you are doing less damage. It just means that the damage is more compact. We were given a number of reasons why they are making this change, and I'll give those reasons in just a second. If anyone has ever played a game that has been around for several years before, you will know that in the interest of the longevity of the game, sometimes rescaling needs to be done, as eventually numbers become too high. By making this change, it shows that Square Enix is interested in the longevity of the game, and thus is making this change now. As was even said on the announcement showcase, that it's possible that 10 years from now, they may need to do a similar change again. Anyways, as to the reasons that we were given, calculations are causing overflows, which has been resulting in bugs. If anyone of you who know anything about programming, if you get a value that is too high, eventually you may end up getting an improper value. For example, negative numbers. Nobody wants to do negative amounts of damage. This isn't likely the case, as the numbers are far from that, is my expectation for the calculations, but there also needs to be considered the interaction between the client side of the game and the server side. The larger the number and the larger the calculations needed means there is a prolonged interaction between the two, which can cause delays, hiccups, etc., meaning that this may be too long of an interaction, which can cause server issues, among other things. Another reason we were given was that calculations for enmity are reaching their limits. What they have been doing to try alleviate some of these issues is to reduce the enmity, rather than, well, I guess you could say fix the issue for a longer longevity, which is obviously why they're addressing this now, or rather will be with 6.0. Another reason is that the flying text is becoming lengthy. Now, this is something I definitely have noticed. I've noticed the numbers flying around a lot more since Shadowbringers, apart from when I first started the game, than I have in the few months into starting the game, and then since pre-Shadowbringers. Obviously, with smaller numbers, this means shorter numbers. Obviously. The highest HP pool for the bosses in patch 5.5 was, and because it was so amusing how they presented this, I have to show it here as well, 440 million HP. Wow. While they have no doubt that the warrior light can fight a boss with this amount of health, I kinda agree with them that is starting to get a bit high. With that said, they gave us the plan as to how they're going about these reduction changes, and the change of the lighting just now just scared me. So the plan. The difference in values used from levels 51 to 80 will be reduced. So obviously pre-50 won't be reworked, which makes sense because of how it gradually builds up, and I think it's I kind of forgot you get kicked out of the firmament if you're AFK too long. No, with that interruption, I don't know where I was at. Right, so I believe I had just said levels 51 to 80 will be reduced, and I was talking about how levels 1 through 50 are well balanced already with terms of growth, and the numbers aren't that high. Moving on to the other reasons for the plan, is the maximum damage per attack will also be reduced. So again, this does not mean that you're doing less damage, it just means that your damage is more compact. The experience points earned will also be reduced. This does not mean you are earning less experience, it means that the amount earned is scaled to meet with a lower scaled XP required. The undersized parties will be affected, and this may become more difficult to do unsynced duties. They do understand that this can harm a lot of people in a wave with farm groups and stuff like that, so they're doing their best to try to prevent such a drastic change, if you will. Finally, the longevity of the game, as I mentioned earlier, with my own personal take on this. They are committed to this game lasting for many, many years to come, and as such, they are committing time and money, I might add, to make these changes. Those are my words, not theirs, in terms of the money and time. It's obvious that they're going to have to spend money and time making this function better for the longevity of the game. These are all reasonable things in my opinion, as I expected as such, as this game is getting up there in years. This said, this shows me that Square Enix is committed to the game and that they are interested in investing in changing it so that the longevity of the game is there. If they did not make changes like this, this would cause problems with coding and cause a whole lot of headaches that could have easily been rectified a lot sooner. Anyways, enough about that. Next up is belts. We will be saying goodbye to belts. So you better belt out your goodbyes. I won't try that again. Apparently, and this was something I didn't know, belts used to be visual in, if I heard correctly, 1.0, so the original Final Fantasy XIV game, but was removed with the character removed from the character visuals with 2.0, so that is A Realm Reborn. I could be mistaken about that, but either way, it was a visual on the character before, and it hasn't been for a very long time, and now is being removed. The reason for its removal is it has no bearing on outward appearance, and is not very beneficial stat-wise. As for the plans for its removal, belts will no longer be equipable starting with patch 6.0. Equipped belts will be given to Calamity Salvagers for safekeeping. This includes the belts on retainers, thus there is no reason to panic store these somewhere before 6.0. However, and this is important, materia in belts should be removed before 6.0. Otherwise, you will lose the materia if the belts are sent to the Calamity Salvager. Since belts will no longer be equipable, they also will no longer be obtainable in duties and item exchanges, which is also why they haven't been, I believe what they said was, which is also why they haven't been available to get from dungeons and whatever from Shadowbringers most recently. Anyways, this also means that there are now 35 slots in the armory chest that are free. 15 of these slots will be moved to the primary weapons tab, which will give it a total of 50 slots, a very welcome change in my opinion. And another of the 15 of these slots will be moved to the rings tab for a total of 50 slots, also a very welcome change. The remaining 5 slots will keep on reserve for a rainy day. Something gave me the feeling that they had a plan for those, that they weren't telling us. Anyway, or I could just be reading into that. Anyway, so mentioning rings, they also had considered removing rings at the same time as belts, but decided not to go ahead with that at this time, as the rings are something that can be visually seen, and I guess they figured that they are not completely stat efficient or inefficient. They also said they would be providing more details about the changes to belts in the future, most likely during the Digital Fan Festival, as well as future letters from the producer live, etc. The last feature we were told about is a new one, but they could not provide many details for, as it's still early in the process, but the new system is data center travel. This won't work in the same way as the world visit system, as for obvious reasons it's a bit more tricky, and thus they are working on developing a new system for this. Additionally, they will likely have more restrictions than what is present with the world visit system. They also do not believe that this will negatively affect the economies on the different data centers, but they are obviously going to test this before they release it to us to use. From my experience with the world visit system, it did not affect the economy, and if it did, it was not noticeable by me, and or it was a very moderate change. Obviously, that's my own personal take on it. And that was the announcement showcase. Well, not quite. There was one final thing that we were shown, a concept art of Hydaelyn and Zodiark, which apparently contains story elements to Endwalker and some of it may be able to be discerned right now, or later on after completing Endwalker. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway, so as a summary of this video, the next expansion of Final Fantasy XIV Online is the Endwalker expansion that is looking to be released in fall 2021. More details about this will occur during the Final Fantasy XIV Digital Fan Festival 2021 around the world, which will take place on May 15th and May 16th, 2021. As I mentioned before, all parts of the Digital Fan Festival will be streamed for free. This includes the live concert. Note that not all of it can be archived, or not all of it likely will not be able to be archived. And finally, a PS5 version of the game will be available for open beta on April 13th, 2021. This also has the options of people who have a registered license for the PS4 version to upgrade to the PS5 version for free. And that is it for this video. I hope you found it enjoyable, and if you did, please consider hitting that like button. While you're down there, maybe you'll also consider answering this question. What are you most excited about that's coming with 6.0? What are you hoping does come that wasn't mentioned? I know I'm excited about basically everything that we were told about the expansion, even the PvP and alliance raids, which is something I don't usually do. Anyways, that is it for this video. Thanks for watching!